Welcome to classwork 8.3 part 3. Today we're doing day 3 of our study of trig equations. The main thing to note today is I really want you guys to highlight that we're back with this restriction 0 to 2 pi. That's very important because last class we were dealing with no restriction, meaning all possible answers. So for these we're back to only considering one full rotation, meaning all our answers should be between 0 and 2 pi, or 0 degrees and 360 degrees. So with that in mind, let's go to our first example. We're going to solve this equation. This is kind of like the example at the end of class, last class, at the end of the class worksheet. We're going to do a u substitution. We're going to say let u equal sine theta, because then we're going to get 2u squared minus 3u plus 1 equals 0. Now we're going to factor. So 2u and u, 1, 1, minus, minus. So u must equal 1/2 or 1. Now, of course, we solve for u, which is not the variable we're looking for. We're looking for theta. So plug it back in. Sine theta is equal to 1/2, and sine theta is equal to 1. And all we gotta do is figure that out. So on the side here, let's draw our unit circle. So here's our circle. I'm going to mark where 1/2 happens. That's the two low tick marks on the top side. And 1 is at the top. So our three answers are pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, and pi over 2. Let's box that. And we are done. Next example, right below. For this one, make a big note. Do not FOIL. A lot of people see that those trig functions and they kind of freak out and they want to multiply them because in identities, that's what we usually do. Remember that we're solving equations, so it's actually better if it's factored for you. Just make each of them individually equal to 0. So cosecant theta minus 2 should equal 0. And cosine theta plus 1 equals 0. And solve them like you would any quadratic that's factored. Cosecant theta must equal 2. Flip it if you want to. Sine theta is 1/2. And then cosine theta equals -1. Let's draw our circle. Let's think, hey, where does sine hit +1/2? That's your two low tick marks on the top. Cosine hits -1. That's going to be right there on the left. So our answer theta should be pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, and pi. We'll box that, and we're done. This example on the kind of middle right, we're going to come back to this. That's what I put last example. So let's make that note on your paper that we're not going to do this right now. We will do it today, just at the end of these questions. We'll start here in the bottom left one. Solving a trig equation using identities. So notice how it looks pretty similar to the last one we did, except for one major difference. We have a cosine theta and a sine squared theta, meaning the two functions are different. So what we're going to do is use our knowledge of identities from last chapter. We know sine squared, hopefully you recall this, is 1 minus cosine squared. Now I do that because now all the variables have a cosine on them. And now we're going to solve it like we did the last question, or the first question I should say. Let's multiply it out. Let's move it all to one side. So 2 cosine squared theta plus 3 cosine theta plus 1 equal to 0. We'll do our u substitution. So I'll state let u equal cosine theta. We're going to factor this. So that's 2u and u, 1 and 1. And then, of course, both positive. I'll make this a little bit cleaner. In case you're wondering how I did that, I just thought of it as 2u squared plus 3u plus 1. So u must equal -1/2 or -1. So that would mean cosine theta must equal -1/2 or -1. Now let's draw our circle. We're going to mark where cosine it's -1/2, so that's going to be on the left on the high tick marks, and then -1 is of course on the far left. So theta must be 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and pi. Great, and there's our answer. Okay, so here's our second to last example. Notice how it's quite similar to the last one. So in this one, I'm actually going to show you another method. In this one, I'm going to show you how to solve it using a graphing calculator, meaning using your HP prime. What you want to do is basically make the function equal to 0, or like make the equation equal to 0. So here's your equation. So on this one, I'm just going to minus the 2. So I have cosine squared theta plus sine theta minus 2 is equal to 0. Once you've done that, this is what we're going to plug into your calculator. So plug in to calc. I'm going to get my HP prime. Here's my HP prime. Notice I'm on the home screen. I'm going to tap the apps button and then go to function. And then you want to type this equation in exactly as it is. So I'm just showing you right here, so you don't have to follow me yet. We'll use our calculator more extensively next class, but I'm just showing you today. So here's the function. We want to plot this, so I hit the plot button. And we're looking for where this graph hits 0, because the equation equaled 0. That's why we did that. Notice how no matter where you go, this equation does not hit 0, which is going to mean the answer is no solution. So now I'm back on the question. I just put my graph there so we can all see it. I'm going to write function does not hit the x-axis. Therefore, there is no solution to this equation. And again, for today's homework, you won't need this. I'm just showing it to you early so we can really get into it next class. And the final example to show you is, of course, that box at the very top. This is in your homework just to make sure you remember identities. So this is not really direct to any equation. You just have to recall that this thing right here represents some angle theta. So really the question is, what does sine 2 theta equal? So remember, you do need to have some prior knowledge with your ranges of inverse, cosine 1 and 2, sine 1 and 4, tan 1 and 4. Sine is +1/2, so we're going to put our triangle in quadrant 1. 1 over 2, this is √3. And now let's figure it out. Sine of 2 theta, that identity is 2 sine theta cosine theta. And I'll plug it in. 2 sine theta is 1/2. Cosine theta is √3 over 2. These cancel. So the answer is √3 over 2. Done.